The youngest mother in history. September 23, 1993. Lina Medina became the youngest mother in history when she gave birth by C-section to Jearrod Medina at the age of 5 years, 7 months, and 21 days old. Meaning, she became pregnant at only 4 years old. Originally, her parents took her to the doctor for increased abdominal size. They were pretty sure it was a tumor, but a specialist surprisingly found young Medina was soon to become a mother. Surprisingly, she did also have a tumor, just not in her abdomen. It was in her brain, and it induced the youngest case of precocious puberty, which is puberty occurring at an unusually young age. But she obviously hadn't impregnated herself, so this was a result of abuse. Her father was taken into custody for suspicion of sexual abuse shortly after, but he was later released from lack of evidence. The father of Medina's baby was never revealed, not by her or anyone. Her doctors suspected that she probably doesn't even know herself, as she might have been too young to form the memory. Sadly, she outlived that son, who passed away at age 40 from bone marrow disease. She's actually still alive today, at 87 years old, and she ended up having a second child at 39. She let them document it for scientific purposes. She was offered thousands for a newspaper article. She was offered hundreds of thousands for a movie, but she wanted her son to have as normal life as possible, so she always declined. The tragedy of Travis the chimpanzee. Aside from going on his well-known rampage, Travis was far from the average chimp. He was actually a star, working in animal acting, including gigs like Pepsi, Old Navy, and more. Sandra and Jerome Harold adopted him when he was only 3 days old. They loved each other, and he went with them everywhere, out shopping, riding around, even sports games. But in 2009, Travis escaped the house, and Sandra's friend Charla helped lure him back inside with his favorite Tickle Me Elmo toy. But when he saw her holding it, he snapped. He attacked 55-year-old Charla, causing injuries to her face and arms. Then Sandra, his own mother, took a knife and stabbed him in the back, making him angrier, which led to this 911 call.
What's the problem? Send the police!
What's the problem there?
He ripped her face off!
He ripped her face off?
Police arrived and Travis ran outside. They shot him instantly. Charlotte then went under a 7-hour surgery. She suffered, quote, horrendous injuries. She ended up losing her eye, her nose, her hands, her lips, her mid-face bone structure, and a significant amount of brain tissue. 5 interesting stuff. Number 5. This is the world record largest balloon in the world being popped. And on a more terrifying note, number 4. A snake can actually slither down your throat undetected while you're asleep. This is what the process of removing it looks like. Number 3. This is a facial prosthesis for a wounded soldier in World War I. This is his healed face without it, and this is him with it. The reason many of these don't remain, even though so many were created, is that they were seen as a piece of their true face, so they were respectfully buried with them still attached. Number 2. The house from Up was depicted floating with this many balloons, but in reality, it would have needed somewhere around this many balloons just to leave the ground. And number 1. If you were ever wondering what the most common letter in the English language is, it's the letter E, while J is the least common. With this display, you can also see where the letter is most often used. So if you know anyone with, say, the letter J in their name, treat them right. They're special. Top 3 close calls with death. Number 3. When school buses stop, a stop sign comes out, and all traffic has to stop. But while a kid is getting off the bus, a car decides to speed up to pass it. The bus driver sees this, and at a moment's notice closes the door and pulls the kid back. Thanks to her, this kid isn't smeared all over the ground. Number 2. A guy in a wheelchair tries to jump off a ramp. He lands too soon and ends up in a backflip. Sadly, he didn't complete the flip, so he fell on his head. I can't imagine this felt very good, and apparently he couldn't walk after this. And number 1. Speaking of wheelchairs, an old man in one sees a guy working on top of a ladder, and instead of going under it, since he had enough space to, he started to vigorously shake it, causing the worker to fall 30 feet to the ground. Luckily, he broke his fall with his spine. Some people call this a crazy old man, but I tend to call it attempted murder. Sadly, the identity of this man has been unknown since 2019. He's still rolling around free out there. Time out. Commercial break. Only 7% of you guys are subscribed. Help me change that. 92.4 of you guys subscribe right now while you're watching the video. That way you never miss one of these. Also, feel free to join the Discord down below. Alright, commercial break over. Have you ever been standing somewhere up high? Maybe the top of a building, or maybe even the second floor of a mall, and out of seemingly nowhere, you get the feeling to jump? L'appel du vide, or the call of the void. A phenomenon, while unnerving, is pretty common today. They gives you a sudden urge to throw yourself into death's arms. Thus, the call of the void. The weird part is this call has no correlation to people who have authentic thoughts about taking their own life. The only correlation seems to be with people of heightened anxiety. Sadly, they seem to be the victim of this phenomenon more often. But this isn't exclusive to just jumping from a high place. People also account the feeling to touch visibly hot objects, jerking the steering wheel into oncoming traffic, laying on railroad tracks, and even sticking your hand inside of a garbage disposal. While nobody knows where the call of the void comes from, or even why it happens, what we do know is that it's eerily normal. But the good part is, most people seem to be able to shrug it off in a moment's notice. As for speculation, Some believe it to be reactionary. Your brain's warning sign to back up from a ledge, or not to jump in a fire, may have a slingshot effect, a kind of accidental reverse psychology on yourself. It was the instinct that told you to back up. But the part that pretty much makes you a human is saying, yeah, well, why not? You don't control me. And while that's pretty far into speculation, the other side of the coin is that thinking a deity from a spiritual realm is using his short moments to contact you and draw you closer to the void. So what does this mean? Absolutely nothing. It means you're normal, perfectly average, 100% healthy. If you watch this to the end, I want you to understand this has nothing to do with planning attempts on your life, nothing to do with constant hopelessness, frequent worrying, persistent loneliness, severe mood changes, and feelings of impending doom. If you've been victim to feeling any of these, the Prevention Hotline is a free service that can provide confidential support for people in distress. 4 children for sale. Inquire within. A well-known photo who many believe to be staged, but its backstory is truly haunting. This photo is of Lucille, the mother, Lana, age 6, Ray, age 5, Milton, age 4, Sue, age 2, and what's rarely explained is Lucille is pregnant with an unborn child, soon to be named David. Getting away from a mother that never wanted you might sound like heaven, but the reality is they live quite the opposite. Ray and Milton were sold in August of 1950. Their names were changed to Beverly and Kenneth, though their owners mostly refer to them as slave. They spent their free time chained up in a barn, and were only released to work in fields. David, the once unborn sibling, was adopted instead of sold. He lived just a few miles away. He would often make a trip on bike, sneak into the barn holding Ray and Milton, to unchain them. Lana died of cancer, and Sue had a relatively normal life. At age 17, Ray was kidnapped and raped, which resulted in a baby that she gave up for adoption. Milton decided to stay with his owners, who mercilessly beat him and starved him every day, so a judge ruled him a menace to society and locked him up in a mental hospital. After this picture was taken, Lucille had 4 more daughters, who she decided to keep. Those children described her as cold and completely lacking of love. David was the only one who formally forgave his mother. The story goes to show, not everyone deserves the love of innocent children, especially not Lucille. Top 3 close calls with death. Number 3. While driving on a mountainside, this driver oddly decides to take this unnecessary detour to the right, making him about 2 seconds behind where he would have been. Later on that same road, a boulder comes crashing down, right where he would have been if he didn't slow down for some random second. Number 2. A hiker was chilling in a swampland in Florida when this happened.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Holy shit.
Luckily, the puma was more scared of her, because she could have easily been a free meal, though she may have to change her undies after this. And number 1. A skater is filming some basic tricks when his momentum after bailing keeps him running forward. When his friends catch up with him, they find he stopped just in time to not fall to his death.
Concha su madre. Concha su madre.
Not sure if that's considered good luck or bad luck, but at least he's still alive. 5 interesting stuff. Number 5. This is one of the first cat videos ever recorded. It's colorized and speed adjusted. The original looks like this. Number 4. This is what a bald eagle's nest looks like. Normal, right? Well, here's a human for scale. They're usually 3 feet deep and 5 foot wide, but some have even been found to be almost 10 feet wide. Number 3. Here is a white blood cell, chasing and killing a bacteria. It's able to track it by following the trail of its secretions. You have this guy to thank for living a healthy life. Number 2. The first practical helicopter was invented in 1939, but this is an early concept for a helicopter in the year 1922, which now we know was a hovering death trap, and really makes people wonder why they use so many propellers. And number 1, Yulia Simonova. Standing at 7 feet tall, she's one of the tallest female basketball players to ever live. She's from Latvia, and in her time playing for the Soviet Union, she never lost a single game of international competition. She won 15 championships, 15 European Champion Cups, and 2 gold medals. The Tylenol Killer. On September 29th, 1982, a 12-year-old girl from Elk Grove Village, Illinois, mysteriously died. Later that day, 27-year-old Adam Janus would die in a hospital. It was sudden, so his brother and sister-in-law went home and took some pain meds to ease the headache, only to also suddenly die. The only common event? Taking simple Tylenol. Within a few days of this, countless other people died, all linking back to Tylenol. Tests were run on the pills, and traces of cyanide were present in the capsules. Ingesting cyanide poisons the mitochondria electron transportation chain. In simple terms, it prevents the use of oxygen, usually causing death within a few minutes. In a rush to save lives, with 31 million bottles in circulation, and no idea which ones were deadly, Johnson & Johnson let people exchange their capsules for solid pills, which they did discover more laced pills. So who was it? James Lewis sent a letter saying that if they wanted the cyanide pills to stop, to send him $1 million. He ended up not being the guy. The reality is, nobody knows. The Tylenol Killer is most likely still alive today. But you do have this guy to thank for those little plastic covers over all your over-the-counter medication. 2 sentence horror stories. As I watch her roll peacefully over in her sleep, I smile and think how lucky I am to know what true love feels like. It may look like an accident to others, but I know she leaves that tiny crack in the blinds of her window just for me. As I dragged my mangled, bloody body up the steps, I noticed the serene beauty of the sunrise from the bridge. No matter, I must make sure I land on my head this time. The doctor hid his face in his hands, now crying, as screams filled the hospital that truly didn't have any more room. Humans, no matter how injured, old, or sick, just wouldn't die anymore. Mommy always screams when I show up inside the house soaking wet. She keeps telling me she didn't want me to die, but I know she heard me cry for help when I was drowning in our pool. Mom always said she wanted to die before her kids. As the doctor read my diagnosis, I realized I would have to grant her wish myself. Animals used to be big, like really big. I'm sure you know about the giant bugs, like Arthropolera, the 300 million year old ancestors to centipedes and millipedes. They grew up to 8 feet in length, which I don't know how that could be considered a bug, but imagine finding one of those in your house. And if you think giant bugs are terrifying, imagine if a 40-foot long, 2,500 pound snake ever existed. Oh wait, it did. The Titanoboa from 10 million years ago. This monstrosity lived in modern day Colombia and ate crocodiles. Crocodiles, the ultimate predator and survivor, who've been around for 200 million years, who were also giant. That's disturbing. Our planet's lovely past also featured things like giant sharks, who dwarf the sharks of today, giant pigs, who look like demons, giant sloths, who look suspiciously friendly, giant penguins, giant turtles, giant everything. If you ever get access to a time machine, please just don't go to the past. You'll be tiny and you'll be eaten in a matter of minutes. Just don't do it. What is the creepiest unexplained thing you have ever come across on the internet? I was 12, alone in my room, casually browsing YouTube on my old laptop, when suddenly a jump scare opens from a completely different tab on Chrome. I still remember my webcam's light blinking. I was so terrified that I wasn't able to use my laptop alone for a good 6 to 7 months. When I was a kid, I had some cereal that had a website to visit to enter to win some prize or something. I don't remember the specifics. Anyway, when I entered that site into my computer, it didn't take me to some kid-friendly site or anything. It took me to a blank white page with just the text, "We have been watching you." Reddit user Fat and Depressed had an app that took photos of everyone that came to his house. He got loads in a row, often way after midnight, but no one was in the photos. Then suddenly, in one of the photos, he saw this thing. Once while I was playing some random game on my PC, my speakers cut out for a second, and I heard a loud typing sound, like if someone had a mic next to a keyboard. 2 women started talking and laughing really loud, and then the sound went back to normal. Top 3 rare photos from history. Number 3. On February 14th, 1929, 7 members of Chicago's North Side Gang were lined up against a wall and shot dead. The only survivor to witness the Valentine's Day massacre was a dog named Highball, who was chained up in a garage at the time. His owner was one of the 7 victims. Highball was so distraught after what he witnessed, he was put down because he was unable to live a normal life. Number 2. Although the first black person graduated in the US in 1826, it was more of an anomaly, as black people weren't allowed into most colleges until the late 60s. Then obviously, saying they were allowed and actually accepting black people were a different story. But enrolling into a college while black would get you a letter akin to this. In number 1, this is a victim of a concentration camp after he was liberated. This photo captured the moment he identified a guard known for brutally beating prisoners. This is the same guard moments before he was executed with a shovel. A grim way to go, but considered merciful compared to what he did while being a guard. Also, this is an American soldier turning a blind eye to the occasion. Top 5 ways to know you're old. Number 5. This dance. Please don't make me go down your page and find you doing this. If you did this today, your hip would probably pop out of place. Number 4. If you know this sound, you're ancient. If you have ever jerked in your life once, you now qualify for a veteran's discount. Back it up, Betty White. Number 3. Fun Run. I never know why people stopped playing this, because this game was actual fire. I even played Fun Run 2 for a while, but just like My Singing Monsters, everyone soon forgot it even existed. Though these games always get the old folks home popping. Number 2. If you watched any of these movies on release date. And number 1. Phones did not used to come with emojis. You used to have to download a separate keyboard. There was a time when people had vastly different emojis, from all different types of downloads. If you remember this, please stop feeling shy to ask for that senior discount, because everyone already knows you qualify. Grandma, Grandpa, please go ahead and pre-order that coffin you've been eyeballing. It's almost time to enter them pearly gates. I'm sorry, but somebody had to say it. Don't forget to tune in next time. We wouldn't want you to miss out on any mysterious content, now would we?